Today we are talking about the nervous system states of shutdown and freeze. This is a common question that my nervous system students ask me. And so let us clarify this. If you are not a student yet, I am going to go for from the very basics. So shutdown and freeze both map to the dorsal vagal parasympathetic nervous system state. And what that means is that inside our internal surveillance system. This is part of our survival response. All humans have this. This is a mammalian thing, right? That we all have. And so our first line of defense is how we are when we are regulated. So this is through our ventral vagal state of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is what, if you were to train a nervous system, they say to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system response of rest, digest, and heal. This is our first line of defense. And so the second line of defense is the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system response, which pretty just much means go. It is the energy mobilization state where our body prepares us to go and do something, either fight, move towards that stressor, or move away from the stressor, run away from the stressor. This is what most people know about. However, not a lot of people know about the third state of shutdown and freeze. And to be quite honest with you, in my nursing school, when I was a student, we did not learn about this second branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. So a lot of the times, when we hear about nervous system work, the parasympathetic is good because that is the rest and digest. And that's definitely true. However, it has a dark side too. Imagine that. It has a dark side too, which is so the parasympathetic turns on the brakes for the fight or flight, right? That's what it does. It helps to slow us down and to become the brake for our system so that we're not always fighting or flighting because really that response is really only good for 20 minutes max before we actually run out of energy. That's what that system is activated for. And so the parasympathetic nervous system slows us down and brakes. And because it is the braking system, sometimes we can turn on the brake too much, right? And this is like how I think about it is that the brakes are really slammed shut with the emergency brake on. And so this is the dorsal vagal state. And this dorsal vagal state contains shutdown and freeze. And so the similarities between the two is that they're both in the no-go or the immobilization, energy conservation part of our nervous system. This is the third line of defense. That is a similarity between the two. And so for shutdown, it is that word in and of itself. This maps to really depressive, hopeless type of feelings. It is when we really cannot even move, right? Like there's no energy in our system. Our body shuts down our system and only prioritizes our main organs, which is the lungs, heart, and brain. That is where our resources go, even though it doesn't need to be. That is just the perception that our minds or our nervous systems have done in this state. And so when we shut down, our energy is low. We feel depleted. We're exhausted all the time. We have difficulty coming out of bed. Chronic fatigue syndrome lies in this as well. In this state, and we're just really low energy. Our system has shut us down. And on the other side, freeze is the same as well, where we have mostly energy, immobilization energy, which means that we cannot take action. Freeze is the deer in headlight, right? Our bodies cannot move, but the main difference is that in freeze, we also have the energy of the sympathetic nervous system. When we freeze, when we were back in the day, in our caveman days, we needed to freeze, to pause and focus and maybe run away from that perceived danger and hide somewhere. We needed that freeze response, but we also needed to make sure we had some of the mobilization energy, some more energy in our system so that when, that threat has passed, maybe we're hiding under the bush and that threat has passed, maybe it's an enemy that's passed, and we can see them. We really need that sympathetic system energy to focus, and we need that sympathetic energy so that we can remain focused and alert for when that person leaves. We are in the bushes, they leave, they go, and then we either flight, or if someone finds us in the bush, we fight, right? And that is that we need that instant energy from freeze to either fight or flight immediately. And we obviously go through and ping pong through all the states as needed. But that is what the main difference is. The main difference that is that in freeze, we have sympathetic mobilization energy that is available for us for when we come out of freeze to use that up. Whereas in shutdown, it literally is just no energy. Like the thoughts that you would think are like, I can't do this, I can't do this anymore, I'm very ashamed, and all of these I can't, helplessness type of thoughts. But in freeze, it's more like I really need to do something. I want to do something. That there's that sense of urgency that you want to do something, but you physically can't. It's that huge frustration, and it's like you're so conflicted between the two. Where yes, I want to do the thing, right? I want to go after this. I really want to put myself out there. I want to talk about my services, but when I do it, I physically can't. That is freeze. And a lot of people are stuck in this freeze, and they think that they are in the sympathetic nervous system state because they do feel that stress activation. But if they're not able to take action, then they're not in freeze. And the practices for freeze and sympathetic nervous system state is different. However, because we're talking about shutdown and freeze now, the practices that you would need are going to be the same. You need to then upregulate your system. Remember, when someone is in shutdown or in freeze, they are in energy immobilization, they're in energy conservation. So then we get to train our nervous system again to start mobilizing energy again, which means we need to up, up regulate the system. That is why if you are resonating with the symptoms of shutdown and freeze, and if this speaks to you and you have done all the things, like you have done the meditation, you've done the yin yoga, because you know that is the type of yoga that really relaxes the system, that actually makes you feel worse if you are indeed in shutdown and or freeze. Because in shutdown and in freeze, you need to move. You need to start moving again. You get to start moving again. And so inside the bulletproof nervous system, we have different practices for the different parts of the body. The second part of the bulletproof nervous system is a module called Move Your Ass. Because our bodies need to move either way. Whether you're in energy conservation and stuck in there, or you're in sympathetic fight or flight, you need to move your body. Our bodies are not meant to move. Our bodies are not meant to be stagnant. And so if you find yourself that you are in shutdown, you need to move your ass. And this doesn't have to be a marathon. This doesn't actually have to be a really intense, like high intensity Tabata type, or really intense Peloton biking, spinning type classes, because that takes up a lot of energy that you don't have. But it is through movement still. It could just be through walking, right? Or you can start off with some Tai Chi or Qigong or something like that. Something to move you, something to up regulate your system, or some deep, slow flow yoga. When I was in shutdown and even in freeze several years ago, my body just really craved the slow movement and the intentional mind body connection movement while I was in shutdown and freeze, because I had become so disconnected with my body. I could even feel some of my body. Like I felt like I had no control with my body. If you asked me to pay attention to different types of my body, I had trouble doing it because I was quite disconnected when I was in shutdown and freeze. That's also a state here. or a symptom of these two states. And really, again, in order for us to get out of it, we get to up-regulate our system, which means we still need to move. And you can use movement that is slow at first, because if you're going at 5 kilometers an hour and you try to go 100, that's way too big of a gap for your nervous system to adapt to. It can if it wants to, but if you really want to make it sustainable for you in the long term, then start moving. And it could either just be like pacing, walking on the spot, starting with that, just getting your blood flow moving again. This is very, very beneficial for the state. And again, just the main difference is that shutdown has really just low energy. There's no motivation at all, like tanked. Whereas freeze, you do have that motivation, you do have that drive to do something, but physically you can't. So that is the main difference between the two. And for both states, you can shift it through movement, through moving your ass. And so I hope that this helped. If these two states resonated with you based on what I said, let me know. And of course, it is when you take action that you actually make permanent changes. And so I've given you a very, very powerful and effective way for you to get out of shutdown and or freeze through movement. So what are you committing to yourself? What is it? Share them in the comments below. Are you going to go on YouTube and look for a slow, deep flow and just start moving today for 15 minutes? What is that for you? Share them below. Be accountable. Choose yourself here. You're not doing this for me. I don't care, right? Like, it doesn't affect me. You're doing this for yourself. So take accountability so that you actually follow through on your promises, which can only be very healthy for your nervous system.